the landscaping projects are outside of school.
We have a garden over there.
Okay,
So all
gotcha.
our labs are in the garden.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in the lab. Right off where there's a wood. That's the city.
Sure.
Yeah, 3 acres.
There you go.
Wow. Good, how are you, John?
Good.
Never thought it was that big.
Yeah, it's small.
Aha, that's right.
Then we have a few things garden across the parking lot, which is all raised bed that we got. So we just installed a foundation. We got 6 grand.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is busy with that.
Busy with that, and then clients and private clients. Seems like every summer, yeah, a lot of people, we get this more.
You start talking to God, you know?
It's the bottom of the pit.
Okay.
I'm sure he says that about me too.
Checking on his camper out there, make sure he didn't get
I
tagged.
watch them. I always have to go out and watch people.
Every oak tree.
It's like a water cooler.
It probably.
Inside a perimeter. like a
You
fence
always have
or
something,
perimeter.
he was telling me his bike around,
You also need
hookups on his car.
clean, so it's sort of like an irrigation
I
plan.
always have something. he was showing me.
But and that's not to get, there's like an audit person that comes and checks that you actually have that.
Yeah.
But I didn't
Hey,
really
John.
understand or understood
We started that
why you don't.
only because Mike's
Way
with,
the state.
Yeah, he's right here.
Oh, he's right there?
Yeah, thumbs up.
The native trees.
Only
around
2
our-
minutes away, it's not bad.
Yeah, I actually assisted a master arborist for a while, and he's the guy that would come do that kind of stuff. There's a lot of.
I asked Mike if he's taken Roger's class
$180
by Zoom.
Hey, Mike, you've taken 115, right?
Yeah. it's not crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
So
taken
they already
Insane. Big
Is the
money.
number still 8? Is it gonna get mixed or no?
Well, we usually go to our classes, but when it's summer too, not everybody has a summer one class.
Yeah.
And in fact, Jim's. Oh, Jim has class tomorrow night, I should call him. His first couple, he has those 4-unit non-credit classes, and the first one didn't fly because there weren't enough people. But he said his electrical one's starting tomorrow. So I'll call him tonight and make sure he talks to his class about it.
Fingers crossed that it runs.
Yeah, just bought the book.
Yeah, me too.
It was expensive.
It was really expensive.
Yep. Even used on Amazon.
Does anybody need that class to graduate this summer?
John does, right?
I know I ask you that every weekend, but John does for sure.
What number is it again?
Which is meaningful, that's a big deal.
Yeah. 115.
What's that?
I think
Mike was asking.
Mike asked what number it was.
Did he hear you on there?
No, I don't think so.
What number, oh, the class.
Mike, did you hear him?
Yeah, or did you say 150? It was 115,
Yeah.
the electrical class?
Oh, no, the electrical class is something else.
No, 115 is intermediate finished carpentry.
Okay, that's what I thought. Is 118 the electrical class?
No, there's no, oh. I mean, the electrical class, the non-credit one?
Oh, okay, it's non-credit. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. It's NC. If it's the first series, it's 03.
Is there a
The
class
second
starting
series is
tomorrow?
003. What's that?
Is there a class starting tomorrow?
I think so, yeah. Are you taking it?
No, that is electricity or what is it?
Yeah, electricity.
And
I
how,
think-
how would I look for that on summer too?
Summer 2, non-credit.
Okay.
Do you know how to get to that?
I
You go to
think I-
sbcc.edu
uh-huh, Uh-huh.
And that page has a, you want to do it now? That page has it's got a bunch of pictures of teachers and all kinds of stupid stuff. And you go down to, they had a decent one for 20 years and they, for some reason, they took it off and put up this half-assed one. I have no idea what goes on in people's minds, but then you go to a thing that says, find a class.
Uh-huh.
There's a guy teaching and there's a bunch of things, and one of them says find a class. You go to that, you go, and then you have to give the calendar. So you go to summer 2.
Summer too, okay.
Then it takes you to a page and you have to, it's defaulted for credit. So at the very top left, you have to go to non-credit,
Uh-huh,
apply it.
uh-huh.
Then you go down to CTV is what they call the non-credit.
Oh, okay.
It's career technical vocational. You go to you go to CTV, click that in and it'll give you everything. It'll go to the page with everything offered, non-credit offered in the summer, which will have, it won't have Rodney's class because his is credit, but it'll have Jim's. I don't know what it'll have. It might have the ones that didn't fly and the electrical, the one tomorrow, or just the one tomorrow and the one following.
So they start early for the non-credit, huh? 'Cause session
No, he
2
screwed it all up. He was traveling this summer, so he did some of them in summer 1. He broke it up and then did, I'm not sure what he
But
did.
session 2 starts next week. This, we're still in summer session 1.
Yeah. I'll look at it, right?
Right,
It's okay. No, it's good for you guys to know that.
yeah,
And we're waiting, what are we waiting for John for?
I don't know.
Maybe your assistant.
I guess he's talking to Rodney. You know, he works for Rodney, so not good to have Rodney on campus.
And then his PTO.
Yeah.
That lecture you had last class. was pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
like
great.
Tell about your guest lecture? Guess not. Big surprise. All right, you, it's outside. Let's see, who else? Just kidding.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Got called out.
Yep.
Old Rodney.
This says, this starts on the 27th.
So that's next Tuesday.
Yeah.
The electrical?
Yes. Oh no, that was construction framing.
Oh, God, updates, no wonder.
Yeah, it says construction framing, so let us say electrical,
Framing non-credit?
non-credit.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, yes.
So what's offered? The electrical's offered when?
Maybe the next one.
Is there's nothing for summer 1?
Does it just give you summer 2021 non-credit classes? That's the one.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I saw him, he wanted a video. He came in last week and he said, I said, I don't have it at home. And he said, well, I just need it Tuesday next week. So he's got a class. I don't know, I thought it was electrical. God.
That timing.
Hey, you know, the school's always had Dell computers and since I've been here, and I thought, oh, they're probably an inexpensive brand, didn't think much of it. But I researched it when I needed a new computer last year and I got a big Dell, you know, with the all-in-one, and it's pretty damn good. They're coming back and making pretty good products.
Just not the one that they bought.
Well, this is less the computer than it's the way the school
Server.
because these things, they don't want people to, you know, get them screwed up by adding things or, you know, not being careful because it affects everybody. So they block all half the crap you want to do. So is that camera running?
Yeah.
I'm glad we heard you do it, aren't you? Well, something came up, John.
Something came up?
Yeah, no, something came up.
What came up?
Um, We wanted to find out what was being offered non-credit. So I'm looking it up. If this computer would ever wake up. Maybe I had to put my framing hammer through the school computers when I leave. Then I could kill two birds with one stone. And give it all my anger for the school and all my anger for technology
Don't you get a pension from the school though?
in one fell swoop.
No, there you go.
Or just getting it started on the 15th. Was that construction was supposed to start on the 15th all the way to the 24th?
Well, the 15th, that was last week.
What are the days that Rodney's classes starting next week? Is
Oh.
it Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or is it Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday?
That's a good question.
Or is it? I feel like it's not Monday.
Yeah, I know.
The next thing that James is doing is plumbing. Construction plumbing.
Credit select. So. Jenny's carpentry stuff, that's probably next week, right? I mean, Tuesday. Yeah, he started 6/1, so that's the end of. Oh, yeah, sure it is. What's the date today?
21st.
So now he's probably in the electrical, right?
3 more days before it's over.
Oh, no, they only go 9 days, that's interesting. So he's in the electrical, yeah, so it must start. No, tomorrow's the second week. Yeah, it starts 6:15.
Doesn't that mean they already started?
He started 6:15, so that was last week, right? Yeah.
You're right, Alex. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
So he's had 2 classes, so he's halfway.
Yeah.
6:24 is it?
How did it go from 6:15 to 6:24, 3 weeks?
Maybe because it's Tuesdays and Thursdays?
No, the weeks usually mean weeks. Well, anyway, so. Yeah, it looks like the, I don't know why it wants to show the electrical. Were you interested in taking the electrical? Ben?
Any electrical or plumbing, whatever it is, yeah.
Well, let's see what he's doing. See if we can find fall. Fall 221, that's it, isn't it? So August 24th, so that's regular fall start. He's doing framing, finish, electrical, plumbing. Blueprint reading for electricians is not happening.
It's not happening.
No. We can't find a teacher. Our last teacher quit on us. He's been doing it a long time.
Was that the
He moved to Hawaii, and then when it was online, he could do it from Hawaii, so he did it. But now, but he doesn't want to do it anymore. Guess he's having too much fun in Hawaii. Anybody know an electrician that wants to teach?
That could be bachelor's, right?
To teach construction, you need an AA or AS degree. To teach the electrical, you need a bachelor's because it's some kind of special vocation category.
Not just your contractor's license?
No,
Just,
which is all they really need.
yeah.
But, you know, it shouldn't be more stringent than teaching a credit class. But they're just so, the bureaucracy so slow, they probably know one that didn't jive for a while. But they can't get it together to fix that.
You know how you could find somebody at that? Go over to the Cal Electrical Supply place and ask them.
Well, I can try. I did it before. I've done this about 3 or 4 times now. And I go to the union hall and talk to them. The guys who teach the classes at the union hall don't have any degrees.
Really?
They've been teaching this stuff for 20 years. So it just ticks me off. I mean, I get so upset with it. But I just can't. I mean, I may call it. I'm just so burnt out from it. Okay. So final prep. And then, you know, what we're gonna go for that. Yeah, I wish. No, we're gonna take apart the roof.
Already, huh? Demo day?
Huh?
Demo?
Deconstruct would be a better term.
Oh, not as fun as demo.
I know. Yeah, we're gonna reuse it. See, if I don't get you guys to help me with it tonight, and maybe Thursday, if we don't finish, and I have to do it myself.
I'll be here Thursday to help you.
Okay, well, let's start tonight if we can. It shouldn't take too long.
The sawzall there, so?
I got the Sawzall and the saw in the back of my truck. But we, you know, pry bars and nail pulls should do it. Okay. So we have intersecting roofs. That'll be some of the question will be on intersecting roofs. Did we cover hip? We did cover hips on the last one, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all going to be about cornice, trusses, intersecting roofs. And the extra credit will have some problems. And we'll take it there. So intersecting roofs. The thing you got to know is if they're the same span and the same slope, the ridges are going to be at the same level, right?
Intersecting roofs.
Yeah.
What did you say? If the
If the span, if the addition, the roof's usually on an addition, right? So if the addition or the right leg of the building, if it's originally that way, if those two sides have the same width, which means the same span and the same slope, which they should have, then the ridges will line up. Like the California roof we did, it was 8 feet wide, the same as the other one. So the ridges were the same height, only they couldn't use that because we built it on top. But the one in back, where we framed it, was because the span was less on the addition. And so, and slope was the same, but the span was less, so the ridge wasn't high enough.
does it have to have both of those qualities, same span and slope, or same span or slope?
No, both qualities. I'm sort of assuming they'll have the same slope because that's the conventional way of doing it. And it's really hell if you do a different slope, because then it's, you know, you practically have to fit all your jacks and stuff, you know. Kind of have to fake it because there's no, it's right in between both of those. You know? You can imagine, right? And if the spans are different, then the ridge has to be suspended on what?
If the spans are different.
The ridge of the addition, the smaller one has to be, it's smaller, so it's lower, and it has to be, it's suspended on what? So, I know, it's hard to visualize. But go,
Hip rafter?
close. Sounds like a hip rafter. Come on, it's not too many, it's not, huh?
Common?
That's a good other guess. It's the only one you haven't done. No, there's two left. Jack's left. But it's not a jack. So turn to 286 in the 11th edition. And 300 in the 12th edition. That's a good page to talk from because it's got a.
Not even, you're fine, I can see it really well.
So look at that plan view. It's kind of like what we did out there. The bottom is toward the shop here, that part of the patio.
Mhm.
So see the ridge on the bottom part, the gable roof that comes off
Mhm.
toward us? What's that hanging on?
The
Valley.
the ridge.
Yeah, the junction of the two valleys. Long Valley, remember we did that? And then we have the shorter one that dies into that.
What,
And then the ridge starts right where they join.
was that the answer that you were after, like on the valleys? On the hip valleys?
Yeah, it's a true and false. Yeah.
Oh,
Also suspended on the hip valley.
And then I have something about valley jacks are common rafters cut off by the valleys. And you can go to this is a good picture to make sure you have with you. Because, it's all, in fact, most of it's right on this page. So you can look at the valley jacks.
Can you repeat that question, Patrick?
Yes, I will. So remember I said that valley jacks and hip jacks are common rafters that are cut off, but they're each cut off in a different way. So the hip jacks are cut off by the hip, right?
Mhm.
And they are a common rafter on the bottom
Mhm.
because they fit onto the wall the same way, but then they die into the hip instead of going to a ridge. And the valley jacks start at the ridge and they die into the valleys.
Mhm.
So where this shows a valley jack, it shows the small ridge and a jack going from that to the valley on the right side. But if you look up above where the word ridge is to the above left of that valley jack area,
Mhm.
those are also valley jacks there because they start at the top and they go down to the valley on that side.
Mhm.
So the ones that are labeled common?
No, to the right of the common, where they start hitting the valley.
Okay, got it,
There's 4 of them there, I think.
okay.
Yeah, so those are valley jacks also. And then there's something, if you go to the right, there's something that's between, if you happen to have a valley that's near a hip. Ours wasn't close enough, but this picture, look at the, it's only 3 bays away, the top of the hip and the top of the valley, only 3 bays away. So there's a jack that actually goes between the hip and the valley.
Mhm.
It's rare, and it's called a hip valley triple jack. So because it's so rare, I didn't want to bring it up, but that's what, in case you're wondering, that's what that is. It's because it's, you may have a, this is a gable addition, both ends of that the house that it's going onto may both be gable ends. And then you wouldn't have those kind of jacks. And usually, you can see how close that valley is to the hip. It's not very far away, so when it's that close, you're not gonna, the hip jacks aren't gonna make it to any plate because there's no plate anymore. So on a California roof, it's sheathed first, right? The main roof.
Mhm.
Now, if you put an addition on a regular house, we did it like it was a new building out there. But if you have a regular house and you want to put an addition on, that's also a time limit in California because all I have to do is take the shingles off. If they're going to shingle the whole roof again, then they'll take all the shingles off. If they're going to integrate, if the roof's not that old and they can get matching shingles for the new roof, then they'll just take it down in the outline of the California roof. But they'll just take it down to the plywood and then they'll do what we did out there. So it happens with the room additions also.
In my house, they did it on top of the shingles.
On top of the shingle.
They just-
Yeah, they can do that too. It's sloppier, but it probably doesn't, as long as you flash it, okay, it's probably fine. When I was saying that, I was thinking that too, in the back of my mind, I've come across that too. A lot of times people come and they say, like roofers will come and they say, well, it'll be this much if we tear down everything and put on new roofs. And it might shock people, like, oh, I don't want to spend that much on a new roof. Can't you just put it down on top? And so they do. That's why you get roofs that are a foot thick with. The code has a maximum number, right?
Yeah.
Somebody know what that is? I think it's 3 maybe. Got to be somewhere around 3. Even 3 can be pretty thick, right? Now, why do you suppose the code puts a restriction on that? Yeah, it might actually weigh too much for the roof, right?
Yeah.
Might cause a cave in, which would hurt people. Or it could cause leaks, the more roofs piled up, the less waterproof it's probably going to end up being. And so why does the authorities care about waterproofing?
Is that a question?
Huh?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
No.
Not on the test, not on the test.
It's a general question.
Because water can do damage to health, right? It can cause mold and possibly more vapor than you need. So regardless of what you think about inspectors, and all of us have had mixed views over the years, over our years. The original setup is to protect people's health and safety. And they go about it the wrong way and the long way, granted. But you have to remember always that their initial charge is for our safety. So remember we put on that California roof, we put a 1x6. We put a couple on, yeah, we did. We did 2. Yeah. People do it different ways. Some people put 1, some people put 2, some people put 2x4s, 2x6s. I've seen everything. And the reason for that was
Now you're.
yeah,
Right, backing?
so you have better backing or nailing for the rafters when you put those little rafters on. Because they're coming down. The end of them's coming down along that valley, right? Diagonally across the roof. So the chances of those and you have to nail them toward the end because they're too thick to nail in further down. But the chances of that first 6 inches having a rafter underneath the plywood there is pretty slim.
Where are you putting those 1x6s?
They're on the valley,
On that.
yeah. They actually kind of act as a valley. And the California roof, well, I have a question, is it a good idea in adding a perpendicular room? And the answer is true, it is a good idea. There's no way I could talk about that without telling you what it is. But yeah, there's, you know, there's purists, like if you went back east where timber framers live and people like that, they don't like shortcuts and they like to frame everything really into that. So they might say it's bad, but it's cheap. And if you're not using the attic, it's a good idea. So when you're, we didn't look at that movie on putting up trusses. But the things, I'm gonna just give you, I think I did already, but I'm gonna give you the questions that were on there. So when you're a carpenter operating around where one of those cranes is putting up trusses, you need to make sure the crane operators can see you. Okay, so don't walk around behind things and come trotting out into the area where he's loading, because he can't stop as fast as you can. So always let the crane operator know where you are. Tagline is what you just loop a rope around a truss as he's getting ready to put it up, and then you can keep it from turning, because if they just pull them from the top, they can spin sometimes, you know, the trusses. And if they get out of control and spin, they could hit other parts of the building or people. So you should have a person on the end kind of guiding and keeping it from twirling. So that's called a person operating tagline. And then hand signals you use because the crane's loud and they probably can't hear you if you yell commands. And it's probably a good idea to, when this situation is being set up, to go to the crane operator and establish common hand signals. There's a uniform set, but you know, people don't always stick to them. And you just want to check it out and make sure you know. So you're not giving the opposite signal of what you want. That's not good. Okay, lateral bracing. Now, what does lateral mean? Sideways? Where else do we use the word lateral? Oh, lateral, yeah, in football. That's the only other thing I think of. Lateral, you pitch the ball sideways, right?
Latitude.
Latitude's related, yeah. So so lateral means horizontal or latitudinal or level, because you're connecting the trusses and they're going on this way, so you have to have something going across the whole roof. That's what lateral means. And you need, as well as lateral bracing, you need some ground bracing at one end, because you have to make sure what the first one end solid, and then you can do lateral bracing from there. But if you don't do lateral bracing, even with the lateral, they can move. They can move. If you have a hip end, if you look at your book, toward the end where it's talking about trusses, that same chapter. Or maybe it wasn't at the end. There was a picture of a whole roof truss. Oh yeah. 316 in the 11th edition. 330 in the 12th. Remember that page? So that whole house on the bottom there. So on the right side is
316, you said?
316.
Oh, 3:30, got it. Been a long day.
I should have one of those things that, you know, a lighting board that I could. Been a long day for me too, I'm tired. So you look at the right, there's a hip system, and they just, it usually doesn't come. You know, a truck, you see trucks on the freeway with trusses, right? Most of us have, and they're all just, they're flat, you know, because they can't put them together before they ship them, they just ship them flat. So they ship all the hip stuff in a bundle by itself, and then they crane it off or unload it. And then the guys on the ground put the hip parts together for the hip truss. It's three-dimensional, right? Because it's, you know, it's got the hip, so it's the whole corner of the house. So you put those together and then they crane that whole thing up once you get it built onto the house. Because it'd be a mess to have to try to put that together up on that roof. So those, and a hip doesn't need any bracing because it's three-dimensional, right? So it's already braced because it's got parts going in every direction. So if that's one end, you don't need to brace it. You can just start on your trusses and lateral brace from there.
So it's always made on the floor.
What's that?
It's always made.
Well, yeah,
On the ground.
from what I've seen, yeah, any kind of tricky roof.
Kind of depends if you have a crane or not. If you just have them delivered with a little crane, they throw them up.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to end up building them somewhere.
yeah, or, yeah, and sometimes if it's too small of a project, it's too expensive to get a crane, yeah, you could conceivably build them. This looks more complicated than it is, but it's got, this one you could do on the roof. Because you put, the hips are a truss by themselves, right? They're half a truss. And they would go on and connect to the last common truss. And then the jacks, the hip jacks, and the common, that center common, all have depth to them. They're all also halves of trusses. So those could go up and you could nail them to the hip truss. So that could all be done in individually. It's a bitch to get up in there because, you know, with site framing, it's hollow underneath, right? So you can crawl around and get a ladder and find where you are. But these are all got infrastructure underneath them. They're all trusses, right? So you got pretty much do it from the top, but it's hard to do it from the top too because you have to be sitting on the stuff you're putting up. So it can be done. I'm sure it can be done.
Patrick,
Yes.
if it happens to be a long hip roof, so you build, let's say that you build a hip end on the ground and then you just crane it up. That is going to help as your very solid backing for the rest of the regular trusses, or you still have.
No, that'll take, you don't have to ground brace that
Okay, you
because I
wouldn't have
mentioned
to.
earlier, yeah, because all the parts are going in different directions. So they kind of form they're not going to move.
Okay.
That is a question, so I'm glad you asked it again. The Valley jacks. Okay, let's just ask you, because this will be on the test one way or another. Valley jacks are like commons at their upper end, right? True?
Well, jacks.
Valley jacks? No, they are like commons at the upper end.
Yes,
Hip jacks
Correct.
are like commons at the bottom end.
correct.
Oh, that's considered rare, right?
Yeah, so you can either write that down, so you can just refer to your notes, or look at that page that page we started with.
You said hip jacks are like commons at the lower end? The bottom
Hip jacks,
Yes.
they're like commons at the lower end. They're cut off by the hip. Valley jacks are cut off by the valley, but they start at the ridge. So if you go to that 286, 300 set of pages, you can see it. So everybody that has their book, go to that page and put, where it says Valley Jack on the lower gable roof coming off, smaller one. But I also want you to write Valley Jack somewhere on the left side between common and, right, Valley Jack, and put an arrow to one of those there too. Because it's easier to see coming off that main ridge.
I'm sorry, on what page?
286, old book, 300, new book.
So Valley Jacks are like commons at their upper end.
So go to that, are you at that page? Yeah, you got that page.
I am, but the valley has a 45.
Yeah, the lower end has a 45. The upper end just goes into the ridge like a common. So on the left side, where it says ridge, just below the picture, write Valley Jack in there somewhere and put an arrow to one of those Valley Jacks coming off the main ridge.
Oh, okay.
Because it's easier to see there. They name it on the lower one,
Oh,
but
because if you just look at that, if you look at the ridge of the valley, then
yeah, it's not the ridge of Valley, it's the ridge of the addition, the new roof.
That's labeled Valley Jack.
Yeah. So see, it's cut off by the valley, but it hits the ridge. And on top there, from the main roof ridge, those three right there in a row are Valley Jack. So put an arrow to that because it's easier to identify there. And then if you go to the right where the hips are and where hip jack is, where they hit the dotted line, which is the plate, they're just like a common. In fact, that center one is a common. And then they're cut off at the top. So one's like a common at the bottom, one's like a common at the top. And that's good to know because then you can take a common, you've already got the template for the bird's mouth and the tail. So, and you've already got the top angle cut for common. So you can use both of those templates for your jacks either way. So what does cornice design refer to?
Design the eave.
Yeah, the woodwork that's in the eave area. And name some parts of that. So cornice is an area. Although in a Greek temple, I think cornice may be a part also. The way we use it is an area. So, but it's got different parts, right? So if you're standing at the right next to your building, you're looking up in the eave. If you bend your neck back, what's the furthest out thing you see?
The fascia.
The fascia. So that's the beginning of it. When you're beyond the fascia, you're on the roof. That's not cornice. So cornice starts at fascia and works its way underneath until you get to the wall itself. Anything in that area is cornice stuff. The fascia is one. And remember, even a few places don't even have fascias, but usually a fascia will be there. And then what's next? What?
Blocking?
No, before blocking. Well, I'm just going around, but yeah, there's blocking between the rafters, right?
Yeah, next to the ledger and then.
Yeah.
Right, turn out to the fascia. and
Freeze board?
lively.
Yeah, blocking and could have a freeze board below it.
Yeah, plywood.
Yeah, say you've got a lap siding like the tiny home out there, and it's coming up the wall. You want to stop it before it hits the bottom of the rafters, right? Because it may not be the right size when it hits the rafter. You may just have only enough for a partial one and look like shit. Plus, are the rafters all gonna be at the exact same spot when they hit the plate? They should be, right? Bird's mouth should be the same. You never know. And if one's lower or higher, and you're just running your lap siding up there, you might see cracks, it might look sloppy. So you usually put a fascia that has a groove that puts the the lap on the lap siding on. It houses it. Ever hear that word housing? Houses something. It's really a finished carpentry word. It kind of deals with the end of something. You know, the end of a board, you want to house it so it looks like it's not just accidentally ends, but it ends purposefully. So you might have blocks, you might have freeze board. If you had stucco instead of horizontal siding, how would that stop at the top of the wall?
Milcore?
What's that?
I was gonna say milcore, but which is like that's a metal. that-
Yeah, a flash, maybe a piece
Metal
of flashing,
flashing.
yeah.
Sometimes they'll do the stucco under the.
Yeah, they have, or who works with stucco? Ray, you probably worked with stucco before, right? No,
Not really.
I mean, it needs to stop, right? Because it, you know,
The
the
transition.
plaster die, it has to die into something, right? So
Put a sweep on that.
a sweep, yeah. Or, I mean, it's an equivalent of a freeze, right? A freeze is grooved and the siding goes into it. But if you have stucco, it's not gonna be grooved, it's just gonna go up to it. So you have some kind of board that stops the stucco stop. I forget all the terms, it's probably in the book. Somebody wanna look at the stucco chapter?
I'm working on a house right now that they've been putting up rafter stucco in
Yeah,
all the finish areas.
yeah,
They've called it milcore, and it's just this, piece of thin metal with a little flange, kind of like that wraps around. Just kind of has like a little.
and it's up in the,
a
where
little-
the rafters
A little lip.
come off the roof,
That's probably at the bottom, right?
or is that the bottom?
I'm thinking
Well, let's take a look, where would this thing be?
more on the walls and on the.
Exterior wall finish, let's see, the new book, I think has more stuff on plaster. Geez, we usually get one plaster in the group. When we don't, then the rest of us have.
Boss is here.
Patrick, my house and my neighbor's house.
Yeah.
Has the stucco that it goes right underneath the eave, all the way to the fascia. It's kind of uncommon, but
Does it go up between, there's no soffit, right? It's open.
yeah, it's like, it's stucco all the way up and then.
Does it go between the rafters?
On the bottom part, yeah. On the. on
No, I
the
mean, does it
exterior.
just butt up to all the bottoms of the rafters? Or sometimes stucco can go up between the rafters.
They probably have something underneath it after, like, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of variations. Come on.
Yeah, we shouldn't have any of those questions on the test. They're not even
Well,
on the book.
we're not. I mean, we're just talking about this, these parts. But I've mentioned, every once in a while, I'll mention stucco instead of siding.
Common.
Probably like guys that make good money doing stucco. Good smooth coat, costs a lot of money.
Well, they have
It's
a,
also gonna crack
Oh, inevitably, yes.
and then they're gonna come back.
This one just calls it
The money.
metal bead,
where's that?
No, I've had.
You got the new book?
Like
471 in the new book, but that's kind of like a bottom flashing.
Oh, yeah,
Every time you
right.
start fixing the crack. it's
Well, they
gonna
could put that on
crack.
top too.
I guess there's like sealants that they can use though.
It's still gonna crack.
There's gotta be a picture of it.
It'll help it from cracking like that.
Yeah, it's on my.
Or has that, yeah. The little hairline one.
Yeah. There's just, people that pay their money, they're like, I want that car.
Maybe they'll do a whole house, like 30 to 60 grand or something like that.
Hey, John, where's the
Now
picture
that
of,
they run,
And they
Stucco
do it
going up
fast
to it.
too. Yeah, they do it
I don't
fast.
know.
I think
prices,
what you're thinking of is a stucco mold, which there's a couple different styles.
Yeah. yeah,
They'll do the whole side.
it's
of
like
the
a
house
stucco
in
mold
a
for
day.
window, they have them for windows and doors too, right?
yeah, they have a big crew,
And
right?
it has a little lead in it, so the
Yeah.
stucco kind of locks it behind it, so the crack. Actually made it from tree,
Go
though.
there.
I don't really like messing with concrete, to be honest.
It's
Yeah.
funny that all these pictures, they don't have any,
It's just hard work.
Yeah, those bags are heavy. Fun mixing.
I've done my
they have brick. They're not from
What
California.
about trenching? You do your trenching?
Nah,
Okay.
I get down.
Yeah.
You just show me,
Right on.
got me a Hilti and. Nope, and dig out.
Hell yeah.
So fascia, soffit, right? There is soffit. Freeze board, blocks, all those are. If it has a soffit, what else is involved in the cornice area?
A lookout,
A what?
a lookout.
Yeah, lookouts, yeah, to hold it up. Trusses can sometimes be their own lookout. Because they're a triangle that overlaps. Oh yeah, what's the next question?
That was the next question, is that what you said?
That a truss system can take the place of lookouts. Right?
Meaning that they already feel.
Yeah, the truss triangle.
Yeah,
On the house, it goes over the edge, so it acts as a soffit support. Except where's the picture of those trusses? I'm gonna take that back. So go to 327. And 315. 227 in the new book, 315 in the old book. So you can, this standard truss. See, you can get it,
You're talking about it having return, but in a raised heel truss, it would be like what you're originally saying.
yeah. I was gonna go look at this thing.
John, nice one.
Yeah, that one it wouldn't. So sometimes they go over flat and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't go, they have a plumb cut rafter in with a return piece on it. It's made in the factory. And that goes just, when they crane on the roof, that just overhangs the edge and that acts as the outrigger or lookouts. But if they don't, like this scissors truss on number C or B, the king post truss, that top cord goes past the wall. If the bottom cord goes past the wall, then the bottom cord's, at right angles to the wall. But if the top cord's what goes past the wall, then you can't use that as a soffit unless you have a soffit that goes up at an angle, which is probably why they have that picture. In that other chapter. Wherever the hell that was. 442 in the new book. And the equivalent page in the old book. I'm not gonna get away with that. I was trying. $438 in the old book. Yeah. So see that upper picture slopes off it? They could do that with a top quart of a truss that overhang and just, they could do a slopes off it like that and just cover the bottom of that. Or they could run a perpendicular from the end of that and make that like a lookout. So there's different ways they can do it.
So
With
on
truss.
that one, Patrick,
Yeah,
to set your ledger, would you just take a level and go from the end of that overhang to wherever it gives you the level and then put ledger there? Is that something you could do to find out, just to cover that
yeah, I would
soffit
put the fascia on first and then go from the,
bottom of the fascia?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, or a little bit up from the bottom of the
but you see what
fascia.
I'm saying, right? Just take
Yeah.
a level and just
Yeah.
wherever it hits level, that's where your ledger's at, and then
Yeah, now, the problem is that might not be the same, right? If there's any camber in the truss, what's level across may be slightly different height. So what I would do is I would take a level from each end
that's not.
and then snap a line, and then you'd be sure.
That makes sense.
Always snap lines from ends on any of this stuff. Okay, let's move on. So if you have lookouts, and that's on these 438 and 442. What are they nailed on the inside, on the wall side? They're nailed to what?
Rafter?
The lookouts.
To the
To the ledger.
shipping.
There's a ledger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what you're establishing. is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
ledger.
yeah, yeah.
Are you expecting someone, Patrick? There's someone like walking around up there.
What do they look like?
Vagrant
Vagrant?
guy.
Badge and stuff.
I just want to walk my truck.
You know what? They never badges, they're probably looking for Dennis. You. Close the door.
Incognito.
Bathroom.
Creeper.
Ellos grandes, pues, cobran a much. I came in when we was putting the 2x6.
Oh, the 1x6?
Yeah, we did just stick
You talking about
there.
this one?
There's something important out of it. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that'll solve every problem. Just everybody has guns.
It's a great idea.
That's a terrible idea.
It happened though.
I lived in Australia for 3 years and nobody had guns. It was great. It was awesome. Good vibes. No risk of being shot.
Punch back in.
Yeah, exactly.
Big ass eyes.
I fucking think you too, huh?
Uh-huh.
Damn. Fucking eye getting chased by one.
Real good.
Get that, Patrick.
Did Pat go after the guy?
Chat.
Yeah, he will talk to the person in the park over there, so.
I mean, there's no reason for anyone to be over here except for us, so.
Yeah.
He wants to buy the tiny house.
Yeah. right. Like I'm Rodney's RV.
That was sick ass arm.
Maybe he lives in a tiny home.
I wonder if he knows it's different.
Yeah, he's in Jim's class tomorrow, and Jim said he'd leave some stuff out on the railing. Looks like he forgot.
No, for the electrical.
Yeah, for tomorrow's class. God, this is taking forever.
How many more questions? are there?
We're almost halfway. So,
Damn.
but
We're gonna picture.
so,
Almost halfway.
so you guys gotta help me. You guys gotta help me. We're all tired, so we gotta help each other. So when I give you a page number, you gotta, and you have your book, you gotta go to that page. For instance, if everybody's on 438 or 442, and I ask what the lookout's nailed to, just go to the damn picture. Don't try to think because you're too tired to think. You've got no memory. You can barely get words out. So just go to that picture and say, well, shit, it's nailed to a ledger on the wall side and it's nailed to the freaking rafter on the outside.
It doesn't say ledger though.
It does?
Oh, it
Yeah.
does, okay.
Yeah,
There's two, one says Raptor.
yeah. They're not always the greatest pictures, but, okay. That'll help me along if we do that.
Because here it's continuous neighbors, right?
So we gotta find.
The
my
bottom
glasses.
Yeah,
picture says Ledger.
This one's.
So, if you put either, or you might get it wrong.
Well, you really have to check into people that are wandering around, you know, these days. God.
Oh, you probably don't get as many as we get on. East
No,
Coast.
no, this campus is blessed. We've never had any, you know, dangerous people. or weird
Come
people.
look.
We've got homeless in campus.
We have weird
homeless
students,
ones,
but not weird.
Finding heroin needles. all the
Yeah, oh
time.
yeah. No, main campus is much more fun.
Oh, yeah.
There's always shit going on there.
Not when you're gardening and there's heroin needles.
I've had some students that are pretty iffy, but I had a student killed in a gang fight a couple years after I had him down at the beach.
That's sad.
Yeah,
Gangs at the beach.
yeah. He was waiting in line at the boathouse. It might have been whatever it was before. What was it before? Any guys ever been down?
You talking about,
Blue,
talking about Hendrix?
no, yeah, Hendrix, yeah.
Yeah. Hendrix.
What was it before, Pelican, Brown Pelican? And he just hassled the gang guy, and the gang guy came back and I think he hit him, and then the gang guy turned around and pulled out a knife and stabbed him, and he just bled to death. That's the closest I've come to a real issue like that, but
Oh,
that's sad, you know?
a little way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a hassle. It wasn't even a, you know,
So dumb.
yeah, it is. Yeah, whatever you guys do, you know, I used to do that on the freeway. Some guy would cut me off or just driving like crazy. I'd flip him off or yell at him, you know. Don't ever do any of that anymore. Because they could just easily have a gun and just aim it your way and fire away.
My old boss ran somebody off the road.
Oh,
Yeah, the road rage is unbelievable. And the rage in general, I mean, if you look at the news, it's just out of control. So don't hassle anyone, even if they deserve it. It's not worth it. So open cornice design, that's when there's fascia but no soffit. And in the design we have here in Santa Barbara, usually just 2x8, 2x10 fascia. Yeah.
Wait, can you repeat that?
What's that?
What did you say? Can you repeat that?
Still can't.
Ask to repeat the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
sorry.
yeah. So an open cornice design means there's no soffit, right? That cornice area is open. That's what we mean. And sometimes there's just the fascia, it's just a 2x, right? You've seen it. That's pretty common out here. Depending on the style, but. It's probably got to name that style. Because so many places they'll do finished fascia. You know, like Victorian House will have one by on with, you know, a little bit of curlicue trim, you know, what's the word? Shape, you know, design on it instead of just squarish. The frieze dresses or covers the joint where wall and soffit meet. That's true.
Oh, freeze is that.
Yeah, it's on the picture, but what is the advantage, if any, of a framed valley roof intersection? That's the one we did out there.
Sorry, can you say again?
Yeah. What is the advantage, if any, of a framed valley roof intersection instead of a California? Is there advantage of the frame that?
To use the attic.
Yeah, to use the attic, to be able to go into the addition attic. So if a house has an attic, then you don't need to have vents in the rafter bays, right?
That's a good question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you have an attic, it means you don't have a cathedral ceiling or a vaulted ceiling, right? So that's open. You have to vent that. You don't need to vent it up to the rafters because they're going into a common area. So you can just put a vent on either side of the
So,
gable
so
end.
have you seen those freeze blocks with the wire and the holes in them?
Well,
I've
you-
seen those in a lot of them here.
Yeah, you've been noticing that?
I've seen those. a lot.
Yeah, if you have a vaulted roof where there's no place to ventilate except each rafter bay, then you do that. But if it's an attic, you don't need to do that. Yeah.
You don't need to
You-
have vents.
No, you can do rafter vents in, and they'll just go into the
Was that true?
attic in general.
Well, that's why the trick question for me, I mean, I've
I
seen
think the
both.
place that I live in has
You don't know.
soffit vents and gable vents.
Yeah, yeah, they can have a combination.
It's just the total amount of square inches per roof.
Right.
Even though in hot places, they do low and high, so you get a lot of air from it, but it's just square inches per roof, amount high and amount low.
Yeah, and you can even have those whirligigs. You can have roof stacks.
You can't have whirly gigs anymore, they get code.
Really?
Yeah, because of fire, if you get a fire in the house, the heat
Okay.
rises and then.
How about any roof vent? Same?
No, you can have roof vents, that's fine. There's not really, you can have the solar vent ones, those are fine.
Yeah, so if you have an attic, there's all kinds of areas where you can vent from. You don't have to have some on the roof. Some people don't like to have things on the roof because it's just one more possible leak problem. Or they want to put solar or whatever. So they'll have them on the ends of the building. Some people don't like the looks of vents on gable ends. And you have a nice sided gable end. You don't want to put a big ugly vent. You could integrate at the very peak. You know, what I've seen people do is just put a triangular vent that's just fits at the very top and it's not so noticeable. And then you can put a lower one on there.
You have to have a certain amount of venting
Yeah.
per square footage, so.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you can't get away with small square.
Right, right.
What was the question again?
I was just going back to it.
So the square footage of your roof determines the square footage of your vents, and then you can
Square
just
footage of your attic space.
determines the square footage of the ventilation.
Floor space. The attic floor space, there's a fraction of it has to be ventilation space.
Uh-huh.
And it's 100, it's 1/150 of it, or 1/300. I think it's 1/300 if your end vents aren't staggered, high and low. And it's 1/300 if they're not staggered. It's 1/150. You don't need half as much space if you've got them staggered. It's on the code and it changes. So that's the last time I checked it, that's what it was. He was the other night, he was asking. God, I said a 10 by 15 roof because I knew it was going to come out 150 and then you could divide 150. And he thought I was just making a small roof, trying to make the math easier on you guys. So he didn't ask you to take out a calculator and figure it out. In a gable roof with an attic, gable wall end vents may replace individual rafter bay vents at the eave. So this is what we've just been talking about. The gable end vents, you can have a vent on each gable end so the air goes through. And then you won't need rafter bay vents. Or a ridge vent. Now, I guess you could use a ridge vent. John, what do you think about a ridge vent and then having one gable end vent? Or maybe two?
You can, it meets the code.
They could be smaller too, because you'd have that, whatever the ridge space was.
They do say the best thing is having them down, having eave vents and then having the ridge vent, because the cool air goes underneath the roofing material and keeps the temperature down, giving it a longer lifespan, but
Yeah,
not really realistic necessarily.
but on the other hand, ridge vents are a pain in the ass. I mean, they're extra work, you know. It's not a tradition here like it is back east, so, or in the Midwest, so.
One of the really interesting things I've noticed is they've done all these studies and people do powered attic exhaust and stuff, and they found out that they do almost nothing compared to what they say. Because if you don't have all the other proper venting, just having a powered exhaust, it will just circulate the local air, the closest under there.
And weird. It doesn't suck it out.
Not as much as you think. Weird.
Why does our local fire department prohibit traditional eave or soffit vents in the fire zones? We talked about that. The traditional vents don't have a ember protection. Why cut rafter tails from the roof side, from the top, rather than from below? Ben, didn't you cut one from below and get a bunch of sawdust in your face out there?
Yes, I did.
That was a great demonstration right there. You got to be coordinated and fit to do that though, because you're walking along the plate. You know, you're stepping over rafters. And you're holding a heavy saw with one hand. And
Bags,
it's got its, what?
big bags on,
Yeah.
you saw.
So, yeah, so it's the best way to do it. Because you're using the weight of the saw and you're not getting sawdust in your face. And you don't have to move your ladder, but you do have to be a little coordinated to do it. So a closed cornice ventilation, let's talk about that. So closed cornice means it has a soffit underneath that closes it off, right? So then the only place you have to get access past that soffit, so some kind of soffit vent. Unless you have an attic with gable end vents. But if you have a vaulted ceiling, then you can just have strip or round or oval vents in that soffit, and you don't have to do anything else because it'll go up and into the rafter base automatically. So to save money, roof trusses should be site built by carpenters? No. Because the building department doesn't want you to do it anymore. And if you do want to site, you can site build them. They can't prevent you from that, but you have to turn in the plan. And they'll probably just tell you to go take it to a structural engineer. So you might as well have either bought trusses along the way or trusses don't have a center ridge, right? So they have to be blocked, so the ridge becomes a block between each truss. There's dangers in using a crane. There's dangers in everything, but crane dangers are bigger because if you get hit by a runaway truss, it's gonna hurt. When you send your plans to the truss company, they design a whole truss system for you. They send you back a set of plans with the trusses, where they go, how they're numbered, what order to put them on, that kind of thing. You know, you're not just left on your own to figure it out. Their trusses are green. Why are they considered green?
Less number.
Less lumber, they use smaller pieces. Usually mostly 2x4.
Less names.
Some people think that you can't have a vaulted ceiling with a truss because we're used to thinking of that truss that's got a ceiling joist. But you can get them that come up slightly. They won't have the same slope, but they'll have a lesser steep slope, but scissor truss, yeah. And there's a picture in your book on the truss page. And then some trusses have less webbing, like they'll have a central web and maybe some webbing toward the end, so that there's two big areas where you can plow through. You can put catwalks and collar ties must be at joist level, true or false?
Say that again.
Collar ties must be at joist level. No, they can be higher up. Yeah. Otherwise, you just be putting it on joists. It could be every few joists, but. And collar ties don't have to replace every joist. They can be I think they're every 4 feet. So valley jacks on the main roof, if you go back to that page, you'll see that because they're like a what rafter at the top? Common rafter. So they're in that common rafter layout too. Right? And you know how on the hip jacks, we put them, well, we didn't do it, but we said, you know, you put some on one side and then on the other side, they have to hit right in the same place. So they're symmetrical. You have to do that with valley jacks too. And if you, again, you look at that plan, it'll show you that. So do you line the roof sheeting up with the fascia, lay it on the fascia? Yeah, because the fascia may not be straight. So go to each end, go up 4 feet, and wherever you want it to lay on the fascia. And people like it to lay different place, like right behind it, or right just slightly on it. And then go up 4 feet from that point, so it'd be maybe 4 foot 1 inch from your outside your fascia. Measure that on each end, snap a line, and start that as your sheathing line. Come down with it and then go up with it too. Stagger the sheets, right? panel clips, remember those? Between in each bay, between the sheathing pieces.
Mhm.
If that was little clips, the whole keep them down. And sheets should be spaced 1/8 of an inch apart on the ends. If you use those panel clips, which you have to, they space them a little bit in the long way. And then on the short way, leave a little 8-penny nail in between there. So they can breathe and expand and contract if they need to. And we said you can't sheathe a single bay, a single rafter bay by itself, has to be at least 2 bays.
Joints?
Like the last bay on the roof, has to be at least 2 bays worth of sheathing. The gap at the top for has to be, it only needs to be a couple inches between the edge of the rafter and the top of the sheathing. Doesn't need to be, it shouldn't be bigger than that, because then that ridge cap won't cover that opening. That won't do. So only 2 inches.
So that is from the edge of the ridge down
To the sheathing,
so that's no more than 2 inches.
to the beginning of the sheathing, yeah,
Right.
about 2 inches. We talked about baffles. We showed you those baffles that go into the, if it's a cathedral ceiling, they go, they
Oh, yeah, for the air to circulate.
yeah, to keep the fiberglass from cutting off the air circulation. They're stapled to the plywood, underside of plywood.
What is the question is like, what is the name? They are called baffles or what is the question? Sorry, I didn't-
In cathedral ceilings, rafter bays with fiberglass batts require a continuous baffle from eave to ridge to keep an air channel open for
Sure.
the installation.
True or false?
Barge rafters on larger roofs must be held by outriggers. On a small roof, the ridge and the fascia can hold it, but if it's a big roof, it has to have intermediate lookouts or outriggers. Everyone calls it. Rake fascia is going up. Rake's always at an angle. Eave is always at the bottom. We didn't talk about crickets. So when you have a chimney come out of your roof, you got a gable roof and you have a chimney coming out of it. The chimney's rectangular and it's usually about 2 to 3 feet wide, and it's just level. So water that comes down is just going to sit in there. Nothing's going to make it go around the chimney. And that could be a leak. So you have to put a triangular piece starting at the width of the chimney, going back to a point. Any water that comes off the roof will go just skate off that triangle. So that triangle is called a cricket. Is there another name for that? There is. I can't remember.
How do you spell that?
Like a Jiminy Cricket, Cricket.
So much slang used in carpentry.
I know. I wonder if they use another word. John, have you ever heard of another word?
Yeah, there is one. I just don't remember what it
I
is.
think there's an official one. Cricket's kind of okay, that's it. Now there's extra credit. I'm gonna tell you what that is because I want you guys to try it. So if the roofs are at the same height, intersecting roofs, the theoretical length of the valley rafter is determined in the same way as the theoretical length of the hip rafter. True or false? Okay, number 2. In intersecting roofs of different heights, the theoretical length of the supporting valley rafter, like we did with the framing one, the valley rafter will be found in the tables by slope and span of the larger roof. Is that right? Okay. We did, I figured it at the smaller roof, and then I either saw it was wrong or someone corrected me, maybe Radio corrected me. It goes by the numbers in the larger roof. Okay, if an 8-foot wide addition connects to a 10-foot wide building, from the following table, the theoretical length of supporting rafter valley, the supporting valley rafter, and then you're going to circle one of the rafter lengths. I'll give you a table. You just have to figure out what span. Remember, the tables in the little book I have goes by spans. So I give you the width of the building and the addition, so you have to figure out which one you're going to go with, and then find out the span and then the corresponding length, and just circle it. Given a gable roof, a slope of 312 and a total run of 8 feet, find the theoretical rafter length by the framing square table. Using the picture of framing square on page 293, so everybody will have their book. Actually, we're doing it in class. I'll have the, where'd the squares go?
They're right there.
The framing squares?
Yeah, they're all right there.
Oh, okay, somebody moved them. Remember, we had them there for 6 weeks. Put the answer in feet and inches and carpenter's fractions. So you all know how to do that. You've got even got that list that tells you how to do it, that handout. And then 5, find the actual rafter length of the rafter in that question above, given a 2 by 10 ridge. And the question above said it was a 3 by 12 low slope roof, so you know that too. You should get those extra credit points. Wow. Really blow this out. So I know we're tired. I'm tired too, but I think, but you guys probably got it right.
We'll find out.
And
Demo time.
now,
Make me a-
the advantage to doing it here is that I'm here, and if you want to come up and ask me questions, you can. If you can't understand the English or whatever, you know, come up. And I would certainly take responsibility for that, and I can maybe help you. What was the other thing I was going to say? Use your books and your handouts, right? Because it's all on there. So if you do that and ask me if you get confused by anything, you'll be fine. So it's nice to have, I mean, I was on Zoom before, right? So you could go to the Zoom and ask me, but nobody did. A couple of you did. But this way it'd be easier for you if you have questions.
What if there's any group questions?
Any group
Yeah,
questions?
let's say we all have a question about one of the questions.
Well, you won't know because I want you to come up individually and talk to me. If 2 or 3 people come up individually, talk to me, and they have the same question,
Yeah.
or they're confused about the same thing, I'll go over it for the class.
Okay.
I'll either go over it and clarify it, or I'll just drop the question.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, this side asked the odd number of questions, and this side didn't.
Yeah. We have a strategy now.
So, okay, I think you guys will be fine. It's wordier than it seems. I mean, that's the problem with tests, is they are words.
And we're gonna meet here, right, of course.
We'll meet here, and Michael's, I'm gonna send him the test, you know, on the internet. So, is everybody here?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, there's 2 of us that. Okay, Jesus.
Yeah.
Great. Alec here, Lewis is here, Ben's here. Neymar is missing in action. In my, you know, we know. Kevin? Kevin? Hey, I'll email Kevin and tell him to look at the Zoom. the Zoom. Oh, John,
Yeah.
would you stop the Zoom and get it processing?
Yeah.
We don't need to Zoom the construction. That way, I want to get, you don't have to stay, but I want to stay and get that up so people can use it for the test tomorrow if they need to. So Carla, Josh is here, and Joel's here,